Hi guys, welcome back to lesson 3 of Make an EDM Track from Start to Finish. And before we go on to the synth lines, adding or layering up the synths to get that big sound, very quickly just wanted to come back to the snares that we put in on the last lesson very quickly and just make them a little bit fuller, because this high snare, I noticed after listening to it last night with fresher ears, it's just not quite right. Let me just mute the white noise and show you what I mean. Now it's a little bit airy-fairy still, even though it works quite well with the low mid snare, which I'm just going to turn down a touch. I just went into the high snare, and if you just, I've already got it there, but let's just show you what I did. If you just press on the insert and come down to EQ, and Cubase has got its own studio EQ, which is really good, so I won't click that just now because I've already done it, but that's where you would find it, and you come up with this very nice graphic display. And I've basically boosted, you just grab the point, frequencies along the bottom, and you can increase the volume of that frequency or lower right there. Now as soon as you click on the EQ line, it activates one of the points. I'm just going to turn band 1 off because I only want bands 2 and 3. And so what I've done is I've come in and boosted it around about 200 Hertz and around about 5k, and it's what that's done is it's boosted the body of this sound a little bit, and also it's given it a bit of brightness as well. So let me just show you, this is without, and then I'll do it with. So you can see it's quite a bit more, it's got a bit more of a punch, a bit more brightness, and a bit more body. So if we then unmute the low mid and see what that sounds like together. Yep, I'm happy with that, and we'll just unmute the white noise as well. So just a simple bit of EQ there to make that sound a little bit fuller. Okay, so on we go with the synths. So we're just going to scroll down to where the pink MIDI tracks are, because these are the ones that we use for our leads. And if you want to navigate on your computer to where the MIDI files are that you've downloaded in the work files. Now you won't be able to import them because they're not audio, but because these are MIDI information, we just go to a folder on your computer, that's the bit, and then we're going to drag them in. So as I explained before, I've called this the main riff synth because that's the main part of the song with the most energy. We do have a build-up synth as well, which obviously comes before that, and also I've called a little section in here second main riff, which is the same sounds as the main riff but with a slightly different variation. It's very important to, when the track comes in again the second time, to have it slightly differently from the first, just to prevent the boredom and you know, make it more interesting for the listener. So if you just grab the first main riff synth one, and with the 45 in the brackets, that means that's going to go on bar 45. Bring it up to the first pink one and drop. Do the same with the second, and you can't seem to highlight them all and bring them all in, unfortunately. So synth 2, 45, synth 3, 45, and then there's a second little part of this riff which has different sounds again. So synth 4 goes to 47 as it says in the brackets, and synth 5, 47 as well. And while we're here, we might as well bring in the rest of them as well. We're going to bring in this, and we're going to bring in this synth 4 at 59. Now that is just another slight variation. So synth 4, 59, and then we'll just do the second part of the riff. which is 81. So first 81, synth 2, 81, synth 3, 81, synth 4, 83, synth 4, 87, and synth 5, 83. And we've got a couple of variations again. Let me just go up to 103. So we've got synth 4, 103. And synth 5, 103. So let's have a quick look as to why we've got so many MIDI parts. But basically this main riff is made up of 5 different synths. And there's different sounds playing on each part. So let's just do this first bit. So this 3-part one here, you've got a sort of a triplet build up with a riff there, and we've got different notes playing on this one. And also to add a bit of oomph on the first triplet bit, we've got some more triplets there with different notes. And well, you'll hear when we play it, this is the kind of down riff there, and we've just layered it up. Each time we're just layering up with slightly different notes and slightly different sounds coming from the synth. And when you add them all together, you get one huge lead sound. And why is this one on its own over here? Well, what we're going to do is copy these over in a second. And this is just another slight variation to this part here, over here. So let's highlight these guys and hold down Alt, copy over, and then rather than have exactly the same again on the 4th, we've got a slight variation here, as I said to you before. So let's just highlight, this time highlight the 3 there, and highlight this one here. So now we've got a nice little pattern all layered up and with a bit of variety in it as well. So let's do the same for over here. Exactly the same principle applies, and then we can do all 4, all 5 I should say, and let's do that again. No, that's not going to work. And let's just copy one more like that, then all 3, and there we have it. So that should be our second main riff here with variations within it, and also although it's a similar riff to the first main riff here, there are notes in there that are slightly different. Let me just show you quickly. So we've got as you can see there, and over here we've got slightly different, just altered the notes, but there's enough variation in there to make it interesting. So now we've got all our MIDI notes in, we just need to load up a synthesizer or virtual synth to actually play the notes. Remember, these are all note on, note off information. So let's get something that plays those notes. What am I looking for? VST window. There we go. Put it back over there in the corner. Add a rack instrument. And we're looking for Silent 1. Okay. Do you want to create a MIDI track? Well, actually no, because I've already got several MIDI tracks programmed in. Let me just go back to the arrangement window and MIDI 1, click on MIDI 1 track, and where it says not connected, just select Silent 1. Okay, so once you've added the first MIDI, connected it, and then loaded the preset, which, as you can see, is main riff 1, but I actually started with a nice patch from Vandalism called Lead Typhoon, but I just tweaked it slightly. So if you do the same on MIDI 2 to 5, you have to you'll have to add a new silent every single time. So you need to right click at the top, add rack instrument, and add 4 more silents to make 5 in total, as we've got 5 leads. And then come to MIDI 2 and just select the next silent down. Come to MIDI 3, obviously select the next one down, etc, etc, etc. So you should have 5 separate copies of silent assigned, 1 to each MIDI track, and then you should also have 5 different presets included on 1 to 5 as well. So you've got, basically they're all operating individually of each other, and this is what it sounds like. Actually, probably need to turn this down a little bit. Okay, so just turning these down because they're very, very loud at the moment, and this is roughly what it sounds like without any EQing or compression. Okay, now just to give you an idea of what they sound like on their own. So the first part here, MIDI track 1, is just more kind of like the body of the sound, with the low end taken out. And the second part is just, as you can see, it just layers up the triplet part of the section. It does not layer up the riff part of the section, which, well, I'll show you how we layer that up in a second. So a bit of a lower oomph to those triplet bits. Let's just play them together. And without. And with. Gives it a lot more oomph. And then when you bring in, let's just solo the third part, this actually layers up the triplets and the riff part. So it's on its own. And then with the other 3 parts, the other 2 parts to make 3. Much more fuller sound, and we will be EQing them together as well to make them blend even better. And let me just play you parts 4 and 5. And very, very nice kind of scream effect. Part 5. So you've got the low end there. When you add them together, and it creates a much fuller sound. Okay, so just before we go on to explaining how Silent works and making your own patches, I've just been doing some EQing on these synths, and I haven't done very much. It's a basic tutorial, so let's just do the bare. It's not just EQ for the sake of it, is what I'm trying to say. Let's just EQ the main problem areas out. So on all 5 of these synths, I just took out any unwanted low end. Again, if you're not sure how to get this up, just click on one of the inserts, and Cubase comes with all sorts of EQs, and I just normally use Studio EQ. I find it very simple to use. And so this is the one I made earlier. So you've got 4 bands. The first band is usually a high pass filter, and what that means is you can adjust the point where the high passes go through, so the amount of high passes that go through. In other words, it's cutting out the low frequencies. So if you click on this little icon here and choose cut, you can then adjust this number 1 here, because it's band 1, and reduce all of your low frequencies. So what we're doing here is taking out any unwanted low end, and also makes way for the kick drum to sit in there nicely if we take out some of the sub there as well. I've done pretty much that on all of them. Let's just show you. Bit of sub taken out there. Change that to cuts. A bit more sub taken out. And so on and so on. And then, as you can see, I've given each one a little bit of a peak. usually around the 1 or 2K area. And what that does is it just gives that particular part of the synth a bit more presence. So let's just show you that first synth with and without. Solo that. This is without. 1 second. With. Without. Bit more bite to it. Basically I've done that all the way along, and let's just quickly show you number 5, which without. With a bit more bite. So when it's mixed in with the lower one, then you can see the bite just brings it out slightly more. So just small changes, which might add up to a big difference in the long run. Okay, so let me teach you all about Silent and creating your own patches. Okay guys, so let's have a little look around Silent before we start programming and sounds in. Let's give you a quick basic look at it, because I don't want to go through absolutely everything. If we were to go through every single dial, we'd be here all day, but let's just go through the main features. So basically, Silence is a 2-page synth. You've got part A and part B, and they're the same parameters on each page, but it just means you can double up. You can change individual things on both pages, and they double up to make a really full sound, so that's great. And you've got 2 oscillators per page. Oscillator 1 here, oscillator 2, or A1, A2. And obviously when you go to part B, you've got B1, B2. So you've got 4 different oscillators, which is really good. Okay, so starting at the top left, we've got polyphony, which is basically means the number of notes you can play at once. So let's, in layman's terms, if you wanted to play a 3-part chord, a triad, then you'd need to increase this from 0 up to 3. Moving down to the oscillator section, you've got a number of different waveforms you can use. So we've got saw, triangle, pulse, Q-pulse, noise. There should be a sine in there, sine wave, yeah. So there's no end of waveforms you can choose from, all with the different sounds. Incidentally, by the way, in the middle here we've got a display which every time you touch a dial it will give you the graphic display, or the numeric value rather, of that particular parameter. It also houses the effects section, but we'll come on to that in a second. Moving back up to the oscillator section, we've got the pitch section within the oscillator. So you can go on the fly, you can just go change the octave, -1, -2, 0, +1, +2. That's great. I really like that feature. It just saves you having to reprogram your notes in the MIDI, but you can do it right here in the synth. And you can also tune the note as well. So if you wanted to, I don't know, start harmonizing with your notes or something, you can actually just change that there. You've also got a fine tune button here. And just moving across, we've got a volume button for each individual oscillator. We've got a phase control, detune, which kind of fattens, it can be quite good in some instances. It can sort of fatten up your sound. We've got a stereo spread, and we've got a pan left and right as well on each. And you've got those controls on every single oscillator. So it's the same over here for oscillator 2. In the middle here, we've got the amp envelope, which is your standard attack, decay, sustain, release. I'm sure you know how that works. On the left-hand side, going down a little bit further, we've got a filter for page A. Once again, we've got different types of filters: high pass, low pass, band pass. Different roll-off curves, different steepness. We've got your cut-off frequency, we've got a bit of resonance, and we've got a bit of drive, which adds a little bit of distortion. Coming down underneath, and obviously that's filter A, so if you were to go to part B, you've got another filter there. Assignable here, you can still assign that to B, A, or A and B, but I always just keep it on B for part B and part A, part A. And then coming down, we've got a filter control which actually covers both filters. So you've got a main cutoff, a main resonance, and a main key tracking, and a main sort of drive function again. Coming over to the right hand side, you've got a mixer. So you've got mix A, mix B. This relates to part A, part B. You can have those at different volumes, and you've got a main volume, of course. And then coming down to the modulation section at the bottom, it gets a little bit more complicated down the bottom, but this is where you can really start being creative, and you basically got a modulation envelope, and you can assign things like the cutoff A and the B to your modulation envelope, and we'll show you this when I'm building the sounds. As you play the sound, it changes quite a bit as it opens up, but more on that when but it will actually make more sense when we come to make a sound. So, and then moving across, we've got a couple of LFOs here as well, low frequency oscillator, and then you have to assign the oscillator to whatever you want. So it could be pan, for example. You can the sound will pan left and right, and this is the speed. The rate is the speed of that panning. Or you can set it to cutoff again, and basically there's no end of ways of getting like that wobble sound in your dubsteps, or nice panning, or you can even actually put some kind of distortion on it, distortion amount. If you've got distortion in your effects section, and you can play around with the rate, that's another little handy tip to create a really nice sort of effect. So that's just a quick walkthrough on Sylenth. It will make much more sense to you once we start playing around with sounds. So let's do that now. Right, guys, I've actually had a change of heart. I'm going to teach you how to make the patch that comes in before the main riff. Now, the reason is because there's a bit more going on that patch. So these ones here are a little bit more basic. So I'm going to teach you the patch of the lead-up riff, and we have some modulation effects, and we have some cut-offs assigned, and also we use some automation. So I think you'll benefit more from that one. So we'll do that one in the next lesson. And just quickly to finish off this lesson, we just need a little clap in here. So we're just going to import some percussion sounds to make this drum loop a bit more interesting. So we want I started with the percussion sound, and I blended the rim shot together. So if we hold down Shift, and select those, they both come into the hall, and we can drag them both onto an audio channel. Different tracks. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Just take off the very end of the sample on both of them. Hold down Alt, copy across, as you know how to do. And we'll just take it off the last 16th note so we can hear the snare and the white noise. Let's just see what this sounds like. Probably have to turn it down. It's pretty raw at the moment, and pretty boring, pretty dry. So let's go in and see what we can do with that. So just trying to get a bit of bite out of that percussion sound. We can come back to that in a second. But I think it needs a bit of dirtying up as well. There is a nice free plugin called Camel Crusher, which you can get from pluginboutique.com, and you can download it for free, and it's called Camel Crusher. Let's see what that sounds like. Sometimes it distorts the hell out of something, and if you just turn down the mix here, you can get some nice interesting sounds. Let's have a look, see what's happening. Wow, what a difference already. Let's just tweak this up a little bit. We need a little bit of reverb as well on something here. Let's try on the rim shot. Just solo that. Edit settings. Okay, I think that will do for now. We're mixing as we go, but obviously we're going to do a thorough mix at the end, and we can blend all these things together.